I'm Jay Moran.
I'm Bridget Jaipal Valenza.
I'm Thomas O'Neill White.
I'm Angela Preston.
We need to get together and let our voices be heard.
This is What's Next, a dedicated hour to have important conversations about the issues facing the marginalized and underrepresented communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario.
We're going to have some real healing. We've got to have space to tell some uncomfortable truth.
What's Next continues our mission to discuss race,
Equity,
and the common concerns of Buffalo's East Side and beyond.
In the suburban area, everywhere, we must work and teach our children.
You're listening to What's Next. I'm host Thomas O'Neill White, and today's episode is a two-parter. Through the University at Buffalo's Social Impact Fellows program, a group of students partnered with Journey's End to create a resource database for immigrants and refugees new to Western New York. But first, I speak with artist Muhammad Zaman, a Bangladeshi immigrant who grew up on Buffalo's East Side. His art stems from his Bangla Muslim upbringing, combined with the influence of the street graffiti he saw growing up in the Broadway Fillmore area. His exhibit, Morphing Essence, is currently on display at the Buffalo Arts Studio. Before you moved, you had the idea to move to Buffalo, what was it like, your first impressions of like Buffalo, Niagara Falls, Western New York?
Much different than Bangladesh, of course, and also a lot different at that time. I think it was 2004, a lot different than New York City that I visited twice before we actually moved to Buffalo. And he decided to move to East Side, and East Side was a completely different world at that time. And, it was very interesting. It was very interesting. A lot of new things to adapt to. Houses in Buffalo are a lot different than what we're used to in Bangladesh. Like we don't have winter over there, so open windows all the time. There's balconies, open doors. There's air flowing through, and I think to me, growing up, that was very. There was something that was very new and odd to kind of just really get adapt to it, where like everything is very shut closed.
Mm-hmm. Do you recall your first Buffalo winter?
Yes, I think the first winter was fun because it was my first winter, first time seeing snow and actually living in snow, cleaning, snow shoveling and stuff like that. So which was fun, but then very soon it wasn't very fun,
right.
After 1 or 2 years.
At what age did you move to?
I was 11 years old. I think somewhere between 11 to 12. I think it was June of 2004, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about like adapting culturally from Bangladesh to the United States and specifically Buffalo, New York?
Well, it's a lot different than here. A lot different here than compared to Bangladesh at that time, and also because I went through like an Islamic school and Islamic education. For me, it wasn't like a very it wasn't like a complete 360 turn. I think it was more of a slowly gradual. Acclimation and slowly getting to know people and it wasn't like a complete different 180 or 360. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, 180.
180. Sorry. 180 turn, but yeah, it was kind of a slow process and also I feel like even now I feel like. Bangladeshi community and Muslim community in general in America, we have our own kind of culture that we have kind of took some from here, took some from there, and kind of made it our own. And that was a little different, but it was easier to adapt to than completely different life.
And I read on your website that you are, one of your influences, artistic influences, is graffiti.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So after moving here, of course, I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know the language. I didn't know how to speak to someone who was my age or who was 11 or 12 years old. And at 11 or 12 years old kid, he doesn't really, he's not really thinking about, hey, this person doesn't really speak my language, but let me try to still understand, because he's 11 or 12, you know, kids, like so kids. So it was very difficult for me to kind of make friends at that age. I found myself in a place where like I have way too much time with myself, and I didn't know what to do. I can't play basketball because basketball was completely new sport to me in here, and in our school, basketball was a thing. Like if you can shoot hoop, and you're like the popular popular guy, and everybody wants you in their team. I didn't know how to play basketball. I was good at soccer, and I was just shoot around soccer balls in the gym, and people used to get pissed because like I would play, you know, at the same time they were playing basketball, and that was very confusing, and I found myself very alone, I lived in Broadway Fillmore area, and we used. I don't know if you remember. There used to be a Walmart on Walden First, like the closer by Home Depot, yes. And that was our primary shopping location, and that's where we would go for groceries and like house needs. And when you go to Walmart and you cross through Broadway, there's that train track that comes. I don't know if you recall, and like that was very fascinating, and how scenery was very different every day. Like one day you'll have this colors, you know, yellow, pink, purple, and the next day it's completely different. And that was very fascinating. And religiously, we aren't allowed to draw something that has life or paint something that has life, because we believe that that's something that's reserved for God. And graffiti was like, oh my God, you know, it doesn't really, contradicts my religion. It doesn't really has any issues. I'm not going to get in trouble from my parents or from teachers. I can just do it. It's just letters. There's no faces. There's no nose. There's no body parts. It's just letters. And I started sketching since then.
Wow. And so that has become a part of your art. But then there is also a Islamic side
yes.
to it, and a Bangladeshi side
yes.
to it.
So when I was around 18, 19, with a lot of fire, anger, and you know, there's a lot of things to say that I needed to say, especially at that time. I think you know, media. And TV, whenever you would turn them on, you'd see something happening in Pakistan, something happening in Afghanistan, and somehow they were kind of holding us Muslims in America accountable for something happening thousands of miles away, which we have no idea about, and somehow we have to say sorry for those, and we have to like, you know, take ownership of that, and I was like, you know, that is not right. That is not right, because, you know,
it's not fair.
It's someone thousands of miles away who knows what's happening over there, and somehow I have to take ownership of that. If I say sorry, that means I'm part of it. So I kind of started looking into to see, like, you know, I had a lot of energy, and see what can I do as an individual person that's positive, and it doesn't have any sort of contradiction between people, and something that people loved, and it's something that from us, from our community. Calligraphy came to mind. The classic tradition of calligraphy, which we protected for almost over 1,000 years, where you know, it's just art. It's just beautiful. It's you know, it has shapes and it has rules and things that we love, and somehow I found calligraphy to be like, acceptable in every society, every religion. Just, it is in Arabic. Nobody understands it, but because it's beautiful, people accepted it. So I started trying to learn how to do classic calligraphy. But then being in Buffalo, there's no teacher for me to teach that. I couldn't find anybody to go and learn that calligraphy, because it's an ancient art, and because it's so old, over time there's rules. Rules became available. Hey, certain letters has to be this size. Certain letters has to be that size. If you make the mark a little bigger, it's incorrect. If you make it a little smaller, it's incorrect. So there's like
there's a lot of structure.
There's
to it, and there's a lot of rules.
I found myself in a place where, like, oh my God, this is difficult, and also, because it's an old art form. The rules just kind of, over time, just became a part of the work, and even though your work might look beautiful, but it's incorrect.
Right.
Only person I found was a professor at UB. His name was Dr. Arif Amjad, and he's like he would do calligraphy in mosque, local mosque and stuff in his free time. And I went to him, and he's like, he didn't have the time to, because he was a busy person, and he's like, I'll correct your work for you, but I don't really have the time to, like, give you classes and lessons, and that's something that you have to do on your own.
So you pretty much self-taught?
Yeah. So I was going back and forth with him for about a month or two. Then I would make something, people would say, oh, this looks beautiful. But then, like, when I sent it to him, he would say, no, unfortunately, it's incorrect, because certain lines are not, not equal to others, but I don't know how to correct your work, because it is beautiful, but you're not following the rules.
Is that frustrating to hear?
At that time,
your work is beautiful, but it's not within. You're not staying within the lines.
Yes, it was at that time. So eventually, like, I kind of just stopped emailing him, unfortunately, and which is my bad. I should follow up someday. but then I started to look into a lot of Middle Eastern graffiti artists, like Al-Said, for example. He's a French-Tunisian graffiti artist. Now he's based in Dubai. Zefa, he's also, I believe he's based in France, but I think he's originally from Morocco, and how they were also taking the same Arabic lettering and kind of making it their own. There's no rules. There's no, hey, this letter, that side. There's none of those things are happening. They're painting like huge buildings. And say, for example, I don't know if you're familiar with his work. Like he paints like buildings like 6-7 floor high.
Wow.
Murals like that. I'm like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I started trying to break down Arabic letters at the beginning. And I was only working with Arabic lettering, Arabic calligraphy, and kind of trying to find my own style within Arabic calligraphy. Then one time, Said visited New York to do a mural in Coney Island. I think the mural project is called Coney Island Walls. It's by the theme park. So I just lied to my work that I was sick, and I just took a drive there. Just took a drive there and met him, and he was extremely kind. That's something that was really amazing to me. That, like, such a busy person, and while doing his work, he was able to give me about an hour to worth of conversation. And allowed me to touch the paint, allowed me to help him paint the wall a little bit, and that was a big turning point, I think. And he suggested, hey, you're doing, first of all, you're in America, and nobody really understands calligraphy, Arabic calligraphy here, most likely, and also at the same time you're kind of breaking down the letters and the whole Arabic calligraphy form, so it's not readable at all. So, but it is Arabic, but maybe try something with Bangla letters as well. because that's where you're from and that's your father's tongue, and you could possibly find better audience and people might connect with your work better. Then when I came back from there, I'm like, hey, that is true. My parents are from Bangladesh, but I am growing up in Buffalo, trying to speak English as much as I can, and Arabic is also part of my life because of my religion and because of your daily prayers and stuff, and it becomes part of your life at some capacity. So Arabic, English, and Bangla, they are part of me. So then I started to think like, hey, my work is not readable. It's freestyle calligraphy, graffiti mix. So the message idea of writing a visual message is not there anymore. Then I kind of took the letters from Bangla, I took the letters from Arabic, I took the letters from English, and just made it my own. So what you have is it's basically like a very abstract version of a letter form, which is taken from a lot of graffiti letters, a lot of graffiti writers, and it's not readable, but what you see is resemblance of English, resemblance of Arabic and Bangla. And at that time, that wasn't the intention, but what I have noticed over time is that how people from these three backgrounds were like, they don't really have anything in common together. They don't really have any need to have any sort of conversation, but if they are standing in front of a piece, they're trying to figure out what it says, but it's not really readable, but they're still trying, and that forces them to ask each other questions and start a conversation that would not have happened without the artwork. So
is that would you say that's your message in your art?
Then when I realized that was happening, and I'm like, wow, I think I made something happen. I made something happen, and then I started thinking about why I started all this. It was to give something positive from my community. I alone can't change the world, but I can change one person. I can pursue one person and possibly make him see things differently than what he would see. And I think the first time I saw that it was in BAS, and one of my pieces were hanging. I think it's the same one that Shirley's hung today as well, where like a brown person from, let's say, Desi background. I don't even know him, and he was standing in front of it trying to figure out, because he can see some letters that looks like Bangla or Hindi letters, mm-hmm. And there was a Caucasian person who was also trying to figure out what it says. Then I was standing behind them like in a distance and just watching them looking at my piece, which made me feel proud, but also at the same time, then all of a sudden they started to have a conversation, and I'm like, wow, that is something. That is something I did, and that's from there, like, this has been the goal, like just connecting people through language and creating something that's beautiful that everybody appreciates, and being they're able to come together because of it.
Talk to me about the Bangladeshi community in Buffalo. From when you moved here, what year did you move here? You were 11, but what
2004, I think, if I'm not mistaken. 2004, 2003, I forgot.
Okay, and then but the Bangladeshi community has been growing.
Our family, we like to claim that we were the first Bangladeshi family that moved to East Side, and we like to claim that. And I think before that, on East Side, there wasn't anybody living in East Side that was from Bangladesh. There's a lot of Pakistani and Indian families that moved because of the Islamic school that was there, and that was our community. It was very small, but it was beautiful. It was, everybody knew each other, and everybody was getting together probably every few months, and like, you could, if you have any sort of issues, you can just call someone. People will show up and try to solve your issue, whatever that might be, whether like, hey, my heater's not working, my hot water tank's not working, someone would show up.
Right.
And that was really nice part about living in that era of East Side. But at this point, there's probably thousands of families that moved. Just since COVID, I think it was like to me, I don't know if that's the case and if that's the reality, but I feel like a lot of people living in New York and the big cities, they lost their job, and it was more like a knock in the head where like, hey, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? What options do we have? Because we don't have work. We don't have work, but we can't sustain living in New York, for example. It's so expensive. And Buffalo was like always an option. People just moved here. I mean, think about it this way, where like, is it a good thing or bad thing long term? I don't know. But also at the same time, like people who are working for probably years and years trying to make themselves established in New York, and to have something that's permanent, which is close to impossible. But then after working for 10 to 15 years, whatever they were able to save, they can come to Buffalo, have a house for themselves, have a place to call home, and really establish themselves within
this community that's already established and growing.
Yeah.
Is it easier now, or I don't want to say easier, but are you more comfortable as an adult being an established artist, like retaining your cultural identity than when you first moved here?
I think over time, as far as the cultural identity and the identity itself, I think I have created my own, and which is not the life that I live. It's not very common to any sides, where I think I have different thoughts about community and people maybe compared to someone else. Not necessarily one is good or bad than others. It's just like different. Like as far as identity, I think I have created something on my own, and I feel like I'm trying to hold on to that.
I think you speak for a lot of us when you say that. Anything more about your artwork? Where do you want to take this? I mean, you've had your work throughout the world, haven't you? You've shown your work all over the world. Where do you want to? What's the next step for Muhammad Zaman?
What's the next step? Honestly, I don't know. There's of course there's bigger goals, and there's smaller goals, and there's everyday goals, where like for today, just get through this interview successfully and get through my day. That's my goal for today. But as far as bigger goals as to like where do I want to take that work? I mean, I think honestly, I hope that someday another 11-year-old kid from Bangladesh or even from here can see the work and say, hey, someone like me has done something. Someone like me has done something who looks same as me, and who face the same challenges as me. So I can also do something. I think that's the biggest goal for me. It's our world is a very maybe edit that part, but our world is a very it could the business side of the art, it can get little complicated, but every job, every business, everything has their own challenges, and you face them every day. You get through them, you solve them, and you try your best to crawl out of it alive, and learn something from it. Good days, bad days, and they're just part of life. And as far as bigger goals, I think the biggest would be if I can inspire another 11-year-old version of me, to pursue something that brings them joy and happiness, and also gives them a bigger purpose than whatever their parents are instilling in them, and I think I would call myself happy and successful.
We'll be back with more What's Next after this.
You're listening to What's Next, our place to discuss the important issues of our communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario. We want to hear from you. Click on the Talk to Us option in the WBFO app, and we will work to get your questions or comments on the air. Do you have a story or concern that we should be addressing? Email us using whatsnext@wbfo.org. Together we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
Thomas O'Neill White here. You're listening to What's Next. I'm on the campus of University of Buffalo. I'm with Carrie Gardner, Aisha Dada, and Ariana Wink, who have created something pretty darn awesome. Carrie, can you start us off? What did you create?
Well, we created the Social Impact Fellows program. It's a program that is interdisciplinary, and it involves students from 3 schools across UB, the School of Management, the College of Arts and Sciences, and the School of Social Work. And what happens is we interact with 10 local nonprofit organizations who present us with challenges, and then we build interdisciplinary teams that work during an 8-week summer internship to come up with recommendations to address the challenges faced by their partner organization. And
and one of these challenges is obviously immigration, refugees. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yes, so each year what happens is when the partner organizations are submitting their proposals for the projects, certain themes emerge. And this year, probably no surprise to anyone, the theme of refugee services, access to basic services to address needs, did emerge. We actually had 4 different teams working with 4 organizations within Western New York that have different types of services that are focused on refugee and immigrant populations.
What established the need to do this research for this sort of data collection?
So when we talked to our partner organization, our contact Jessica Hernandez, we found that within Buffalo, it was really hard for them to find consistent partners and consistent places to refer the refugees out to due to kind of a want to have a more cohesive system internally. And so what we created and we worked on is a way that they could have all of the information they needed on these different resources so that they would be able to place refugees in spaces and in resources that would allow them their best chance to have a match, whether it be food, whether it be medical, whether it be things like childcare or even emergency services.
Because how long typically does it take for a case manager to find these things for their clients?
Often we searched and we pulled different case managers, even testing them on this process, and it took them anywhere 10 minutes and above to find one resource for one client.
Wow.
And the case managers have how many clients per?
Yeah, on an average, a case manager would have around 8 clients, but it could be somewhere from 4 to 12. So, yeah, and also like when we went in, when we talked to the team of Journeys, and they told us that they have a lot of resources in the community, childcare, food services, but they were losing a lot of institutional knowledge because when the case managers leave, the knowledge also goes away because there is no way to preserve that information that they are, like spending so much time on finding around childcare, healthcare resources. So they wanted us to build a system to preserve preserve that institutional knowledge so that even when case managers leave, the ones who are joining in, they can use that information to quickly find services for their clients. Yeah. And that's why we did a lot of interviews, because we wanted them to, the information that we got from the organization to shape our research, to inform our research on what we want to find.
So it was talking with case managers, and then from that data, putting it. Take me through the process, please.
So, the first day, we grabbed a whiteboard that would be our trusty friend for the rest of our entire time there. We set it out, and we started mind mapping. So we took a concept, say it was food, and then we said, okay, what related to food are things that people need to know to be able to access this resource, to know that this resource works for them, and to be able to make sure that access physically is possible, but also language barriers or other issues that may arise, whether it be documentation or zip code needs, things that people don't at first think of. So we had little offshoots like location, transportation, food type, whether it be, is it culturally appropriate? Does it serve people with allergies? Is there baby food? Things that at first, if you don't do the digging to understand the population you're working for, you might miss as an important need. And that's just one example of one type of resource. We went through and did this for each resource of the 11 different types that we ended up categorizing.
Oh, what are zip code needs? Never heard that term.
Okay, so when it comes to food specifically, food pantries often are contained within a specific zip code. So you have to be living in a specific zip code to access that. And in order to prove that, there are many steps that you have to go through. Some of them will make you bring your utility bill. Some of them will make you prove it through mail addressed to you. And then on top of that, people who are in a specific zip code, but that food pantry might not have the right food for them, are a little bit stuck, unless there are some that are near them or relatively able to access through transportation that apply for all zip codes.
Interesting.
Also, the food pantries are not open on all the days. Like, there are many food pantries that would open just twice a week. So when the refugees are coming in, especially for the new case managers, to find out which food pantry is open today, it's a tedious task to go through all the information again. So we created a system where they could quickly filter and find that this food pantry is open and they can go in at this time. And they could also call them, because we have all the numbers in the spreadsheet that we have created, so they can call and check if that food pantry is open, and they can just go in. And even like during the time we were there, this thing happened where one of the case managers came to us and he was like, my group is my new group of refugees. They are coming in tomorrow and they need a food pantry tomorrow. So we were like, okay, we have already created the system, so let us find it for you. So it just took us like a few seconds to filter that information and find a food pantry for them. We called them to check if they were open, and they were open. And he took his refugee group to there, and they found all the stuff that they wanted. They were all packed, and they already had a return appointment booked for them. So
It's remarkable. That is really remarkable. What's the biggest takeaway you get from this process?
I think for me, it's reminding me that you have to start with the people that you're serving. It's not about my idea. It's not about how I think these people could be best served. It's about how genuinely could they be best served from their own voices. So that's why we made sure that we did interviews with case managers, with people from different departments at Journey's End who have client-facing aspects to their job. Because in order to create a system that works, you have to think of who the end user is, and you have to put them at the center.
Yeah, also like it's different to serve a local than to serve a refugee. For example, like when refugees come in, they have a refugee resettlement period of 90 days within which some of the tasks have to be done, especially with related to healthcare. So then how do you find organizations that you can rely on? The partner organizations who could do those healthcare checkups and all of that within that 90 days period, because the money that the organizations, refugee organizations, get for their clients, that has to be spent within that period. So how do you find organizations that are not burdened and then that they can take in your clients within that 90-day period? So
Now, just for our listeners, is the region you are serving is all of Western New York? Okay, like Niagara, Erie, stretching to Rochester?
Not stretching to Rochester. One of the reasons is we want the students to be there in person, and we need to pay attention to our own students' needs in terms of their own access to transportation. But we want it to start. We started the program out serving Western New York, so any of the counties that fall under the definition of Western New York, that's who we strive to serve. The theme, the refugee sort of theme that emerged this year, dictated the concentration of location for all of these experiences. And we really want the students to be on site. We want them to understand from kind of boots on the ground what these organizations are trying to do, and we also want them to gain that exposure to the populations that they serve.
What was it like with having the boots on the ground?
I think it was incredible to be able to walk into an organization the first day having absolutely not no clue, but very little clue of how it all works, because we get a project brief where we can understand, okay, this is the task that we're assigned, but then we have to do all the learning of how does this organization work? How are the processes in place for the case managers, for their supervisors, for refugees in general? For me, it was a great learning experience of understanding what is a refugee, what is an asylee, what is a human parolee, and that they're all legally distinct entities. Learning more about how much Buffalo is a connected place, learning about how Journey's End specifically look towards is part of a refugee partnership that allows for these different organizations that are working on the same problem to be able to address the community in a more holistic way, where they're not vying for resources, but they're collaborating for them.
As someone who has talked with numerous people about numerous things throughout my career, it's often said about Western New York and Buffalo specifically that we are too siloed. We might be working on similar things, but there is no collaborative effort. But that's what you're seeing here through Journey's End. Entirely.
And it was wonderful to be a part of that, and then to also see how we could break down some of the internal silos with the tool that we were creating.
So this tool, this database, you can just view it online, or if I needed food, and I just click on an area or a town, or
so
how does that work?
How it will work is we have a resource map. So you would be able to look based on your location at where the markers lay. You can filter it down for your specific need. So I'm going to go back to food pantries because it's our biggest example with 83 different food pantries. Wow. So you would look at the lovely little green dots on the screen and pick one. And from that, you'd be able to see all of the different categories that we've assigned to it. So you'd be able to see what resources, what ID you would need to access it. You'd be able to see what kind of food is available, how often you can access the space. Is it on a bus route? Is it open on this specific day? And you'd be able to see that all right on your screen as you click on that marker.
And to be just clear that this information is constantly changing, so we have also created a system to update that information. So we have created Google Forms that the case managers can use to submit any changes in the information or add new information on resources that will then be checked by 2 key persons in the organization, and then the information will be updated on our system. So that information is constantly changing and it's updated, so you will not have to worry about the information being old, you know, like, which is a problem with a lot of websites and systems that are existing right now. They have a lot of information, but that information is not current.
Right, and is that because like food pantries and other things like close down or move to a different location?
Yes.
And realistically, you're having businesses that are often nonprofits who are doing the most in all of their mission, that going to each individual different website that lists them as a resource is really time consuming for them, and having it be our case managers being able to be the ones updating the people who are regularly interfacing and using these resources really helps the process, because they know what's going on because they see it day in and day out.
We talked a lot about resources such as food, but what, going down the list, what are other resources that these folks are seeking?
So our colleague Ian, he worked heavily on getting dental up and running as one of them, vision another, care coordination, we did emergency services.
Yeah, we did medical devices.
And
childcare services.
And childcare, yeah. And I think we briefly dove into mental health services, but that was nearing the end of our time.
And how long? You just worked on this throughout the summer?
Yeah.
For 8 weeks.
8 weeks. 8 weeks. Heavy lift?
Yes, indeed.
I think it's amazing what our students are able to accomplish in a concentrated time frame. And I'm just so impressed and amazed with what they do. It's such a great service to the community. And every year, I'm just astounded at how these students jump right in. We were just talking about this prior to the interview. They just jump in. They just jump in and they go after it. And they come up with these wonderful ideas that the organizations, for the most part, implement. Sometimes during that 8 weeks, but definitely shortly after the 8 weeks, the organizations will implement these recommendations. And it's just amazing to see that happen.
And I was really happy when Jessica sent us a link to their website because our system is right now on the website, so anybody can see the system. They can. You don't have to be a case manager or an employee of a refugee organization. If you are a client and you know how to access a website and read, you can go in and you can open the system, open the spreadsheet, and you can filter the information for yourself or your family members or someone you know, and you can help them too. So.
And that's simply under their resource tab and then under refugee resources.
Yeah.
Any drawbacks or problems you ran into while doing this research and creating the database?
I think the drawback for us was we wanted to do more. We really were looking into addressing housing, but we realized with the time that we had, we wouldn't be able to do that. And I think for us, it was trying to make sure that we always had our details correct. And so we would always be kind of in this state of, okay, how can we do this best? Which is both a huge positive, right? But also it's time consuming, right? And we all have different ideas on how those details might be fleshed out. And I think that's the beauty of working in a team, is you get all of these different perspectives to be able to mesh them together. And when you have 3 passionate individuals working on a project, you're gonna get conflicting ideas. And I think that's the beauty of it, is all of those different ideas aren't really in conflict. It's about figuring out what piece of each of them needs to come to play in the final solution.
How about you, Aisha?
Yeah, one drawback that I felt was that I think that's the case for all NGOs and all refugee-based organizations is that they don't have enough funds to implement ideas.
Yep.
So what we wanted to do was we wanted to create pamphlets which would have key information on resources for the refugees and the asylum seekers, so that when they come in, they don't always need the case managers for very easy information. They can just pick up the pamphlet and they can read the information and go and access the food pantry or a healthcare provider. But for that, we needed the pamphlets to be in 10 different languages. So the refugees spoke 10 different languages, and we could have created the pamphlets for food, healthcare, and other resources. But for that, we needed funding to create that in 10 different languages and all those resources. So it would have been wonderful if we had time for that. We also had very little time to do that, but also if we could have created that, funding could have been an issue. So yeah, I think that was a drawback.
Yeah, the pricing was per page.
Yeah, per page, yeah. Yeah.
Well, will this program, can it come back around and tackle housing? Do you think, is that on the table, Carrie?
Everything's on the table for the Social Impact Fellows program. We run it every summer, and we do an open RFP. So any organizations can apply and submit to us what they'd like to work on, and we're happy to review it. I mean, we're limited. We can work with 10 organizations each summer. One of the approaches that we had used in the past was to try not to repeat an organization from one summer to the next. But we are working on some changes to the program currently, and it dawns on us that some of these projects have a part 2.
Yeah.
And so that is something we're taking into consideration. Some of them are just-in-time projects that the organizations are looking for quick solutions, and some of them are more longitudinal. And also what we're considering right now is ways that we can create research around the assessing the impact of the implementation of these systems and ideas on the community as well as the population
That's
served.
going on currently?
This is all in formation right now for future iterations of the fellowship. We are ramping up right now to launch our recruitment phase for 2024. And we're excited about it, of course.
Well, Aisha and Ariana, what's next for both of you?
So currently I'm a dual degree student. I'm an MBA MSW. I'm actually working at Goodwill for my field placement, and I'm getting to work closely with their team on workforce development, and so that's an area I find myself really excited about. And I'm enjoying my work so far and really excited to see what comes next.
Aisha?
Yeah, I'm in my PhD program, 3rd year of my PhD program in sociology, so I am about to clear 2 qualifying exams, and then I will start working on my PhD proposal, which is around refugees, but in India. So I'll be looking at their livelihood challenges, because in India, they are not really recognized at this time, this particular refugee group of Rohingyas. So what kind of livelihood challenges are they facing in their day-to-day life, like in accessing employment and other essential services? So I'll be writing up my proposal around that.
And these are refugees in India?
Yes.
Or, okay.
These refugees are from Myanmar. It's a Rohingya refugee group, and they have moved to Bangladesh and from Bangladesh to India. But in India, they are currently not recognized. So what kind of challenges are they facing in their day-to-day search for livelihood, employment, and other essential services?
So you could apply what you've done here?
Yes, absolutely. So actually, like what I really found interesting about this fellowship and valuable is that I worked before doing my PhD. I worked for 4 years before I joined the PhD program in India. But when I was working, we used to work for a long period on one project, right? But when I did this fellowship, it was so intriguing that you can go into an organization and help them to do something in just 8 weeks. like, of course you're not expert in that area, but you can use your skill set to shape what they're doing in very valuable ways, which even the organizations recognize. So even after my PhD program, I intend to join research organizations or policy-based organizations to shape their work in whatever way I can, with my skills that I learned in the PhD program and through these different experiences. And one of them, of course, is the Social Impact Fellowship Program.
And just from talking with the three of you and, having interviews with people from Journey's End, the immigration and refugee issue is an issue of time is of the essence, is what I'm trying to get across. So,
and it's a global issue.
It is a global issue.
Becoming more and more important because of wars and climate change everywhere. So we are yet to see more refugees.
Anything we haven't gone over that you feel is important to get out there while we're sitting here?
I have a couple of things I'd like to mention, but I just have to reiterate. I feel like proud mama right now because
You look it.
I can't stop smiling. I am so proud of our students. It really is overwhelming. And this is just one team. They're a fabulous team, of course.
Right.
There are 10 teams.
10 teams.
10 teams each summer that just do amazing work. And one of the points that I appreciate so much is the immediate short-term impact that our students can have on these organizations. Now, of course, it's up to the organizations to figure out, will they actually implement, and what does that look like, and how do they plan to take their next steps? One of the things that I really do want to point out is that it's so important for us, especially now in this climate, to create opportunities for students and frankly faculty and staff as well to learn how to respect each other for your core beliefs, where your suggestions and ideas are coming from, where your history, your personal history, your academic plan, everything that makes you who you are contributes to that need to come together. And to be able to create these solutions means giving each other grace. It means forgiving yourself for maybe having reactions that you didn't anticipate.
Right.
It means honing your listening skills and really being able to listen to the organizations because they're the ones that are doing this fabulous work for our community. So the central piece that I love about this program is it's an opportunity to learn how to respect each other. And also to raise awareness of real issues that can't be excused based on somebody's politics or someone's belief system. These are real issues. They're real issues in our community. And as Aisha said, these are issues that are going to grow if we're talking about refugee, asylum seekers, immigrants, all of these things. If this is a theme that is emergent, it is a theme that is dire and important for all of us to pay attention to. So the interdisciplinary nature of the program is one piece. The collaboration and respect that comes out of it is another. But also raising awareness of real issues that need to be addressed. In any way that we can help our community, it's really up to us, and we're obliged to do it.
And just one thing that I want to say about the organizations that fellows work with, especially from my perspective of working with Journey's End, is that these organizations value the fellows so much.
Yes.
They know that we are not experts in that area, but still they give us that space to learn and grow and contribute to that organization in very valuable ways. And I do not think, and I think Ariana would agree with me, if we didn't have that space to use our skills to learn and grow, it wouldn't have been so valuable as an experience for us.
Agreed. 100%. I think that being able to jump in, as Carrie says, is one of my favorite things about this whole experience. And honestly, one of the reasons I even chose to be at UB, because I saw the social impact program, and it was one of the things that drove me to want to be a part of this community, because I think that being boots on the ground, having the experience, diving in is how you learn, right? Being able to be immersed in an experience where you might feel like your head is just above the water, but you're not drowning. You're learning how to swim, right?
Yes.
And that's the greatness of it, is being able to enjoy the experience and learn and hone your skills in real time and see, oh, okay, maybe I need to step back and that wasn't quite the right thing, but also getting the affirmation from your teammates of, hey, we can do this though. We can move in this direction. We can adjust and adapt and pivot. And maybe you have that great idea someday. And I think seeing how it all kind of moves and flows and shapes your experience, but also your overall solution, is a beautiful thing to look back on it and realize how far you've come as a person just in 8 weeks.
Just one more time for our listeners, where can we find this database?
It's on
for our City
Journeys.
of Good Neighbors?
Yeah, it's on Journeys End's website right now under their tab resources. You can see our system, the filterable system, and also we have the maps there. So if you want to look at the visual maps, you can also do that.
All right. I want to thank Carrie Gardner, Aisha Dutta, Ariana Wink. Thank you for having me here on the UB campus. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ariana, Aisha, and Carrie all wanted to make sure our listeners know the important contributions of student Ian Week, who was unable to join them for the interview. Ian was key in communicating with resource providers, mapping resources, and building the filterable system from scratch. This is WBFO and WBFO HD1 Buffalo, WOLN Olean, and WUBJ Jamestown, your NPR station.